WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, Monrovia, and Accra, 1 o'clock in Abuja and Porto Novo. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Opposition political parties in Senegal reject recommendations from the just-ended national dialogue on the political system.
The PASTEF wants to contribute to the democratic backwardness that has been acquired for years. And today, if they say that there are parties that are not in line, the democratic game does not exist. At this point, there is nothing but a strategy to eliminate certain political formations.
Côte d'Ivoire's PDCI threatens nationwide protests over its leader's removal from the electoral roll ahead of October presidential elections. The Ghana government introduces a new levy to revive the energy sector.
To help raise additional revenue to fund the needs in the power sector, the government is proposing an increase in export price of petrol, diesel and related products. The impact will be absorbed by the gains made from the strong performance of the Ghana cedis.
And the UNICEF raises alarm over scabies outbreak in the Gambia boarding school, calls for urgent action to protect children nationwide. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Thank you for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins here in Senegal as a national dialogue on the overhaul of political system came to an end on Wednesday. The meeting brought together some 800 participants, including political and civil society actors. A large majority of the points discussed during this dialogue were adopted at the end of the debates. However, a section of the opposition which boycotted this national dialogue says it does not recognize the conclusion of these consultations. Let's join Imo Edet for details.
Guem Sabop, the political movement of opposition leader Bugan Gay Jani, is one of the parties that boycotted the national dialogue. The week-long consultation wrapped on June 4 in Dakar. However, the conclusions, particularly those concerning the reduction of the number of political parties, are not binding. According to Babakar Justin Mbenge, communications officer, the opposition Guem Sabop.
The PASTEF wants to contribute to the democratic backwardness that has been acquired for years. And today, if they say that there are parties that are not in line, the democratic game does not exist. At this point, there is nothing but a strategy to eliminate certain political formations. But we expect them to stand firm. These conclusions do not engage them.
A Senegalese political analyst described the boycott as untimely. Ibrahima Bakoum points out that the conclusions could apply to all political parties in Senegal.
They are in politics. They can say it like that. I mean, logically, not wanting to be part of the dialogue in these conditions. For example, that what was said there does not engage them, except when the president decides that this can be the object of a bill and that this bill goes to the assembly with the majority of PASTEF there. I do not see which party could have a parallel life. That is not possible. It is not playable.
It is worth noting that 17 of the 18 points discussed during this dialogue were adopted. Among the points of agreement were electronic voting, subject to its gradual piloting, and the maintenance of sponsorship as a democratic filter mechanism.
Imo Edet with that report. In Côte d'Ivoire, the Independent Electoral Commission (IEC) has released the final electoral list. Unsurprisingly, the main opposition candidates are absent from the list published on June 4, as was already the case on the provisional list. Reactions were swift from the various political parties concerned. The Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, PDCI, spoke in the evening through its Chief Executive Secretary, Dr. Sylvestre Emo, who announced a nationwide democratic march to denounce the Electoral Commission's decision. Meanwhile, WADR engaged an expert about the referral to the United Nations Human Rights Committee by Tidjane Cham about his removal from the electoral roll ahead of the country's October presidential election. The complaint by the leader of the PDCI was favorable to him, according to Alhaji Omar Job. Job is a specialist in international law and director of the Observatory of Institutional and Political Life in Africa, OSIWA.
Il faut espérer que sa démarche puisse prospérer.
Yes, we have to hope that Tidjane Cham prospers, but the Human Rights Committee is not an international jurisdiction like the African Court of Human Rights or the ECOWAS Court of Justice, because the Human Rights Committee are experts who get together to speak on the issue. Now, everything would depend not only on the Commission's position, but above all, on the availability of the Ivorian authorities to respect the recommendation of the Human Rights Committee in case this international institution makes a favorable decision to Mr. Cham. You know, the international conventions on the protection of human rights are signed and ratified by the states. So, these are international treaties. From that moment on, the states are obliged to respect the decisions and recommendations of the meetings of these institutions. So, we will wait for the committee or the Council of Human Rights to speak, and then we will appreciate it. But the Ivorian authorities, like other authority of a state, when there is a position of an international jurisdiction or an international institution at the meeting of a state, you are obliged to respect these decisions, because by engaging the signature of the state, it is the credibility of the state itself that is at stake if you refuse to apply the decisions and recommendations of international institutions.
Alhaji Omar Job is a specialist in international law and director of the Observatory of Institutional and Political Life in Africa, OSIWA.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The recent conferment of one of Nigeria's highest national honors on American philanthropist and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has sparked a wave of controversy among Nigerians. Many, especially on social media, question the government's priorities when it comes to national recognition. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu conferred the Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, CFR, on Gates during his recent visit to the country. The controversy has reopened national conversations about how honors are conferred and who is seen as deserving in the eyes of the state. WDR's Abuja correspondent Yasinu Sisetu completes the story.
For many Nigerians, the award was well-deserved. They point to Bill Gates' impactful work through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which has played a vital role in strengthening Nigeria's health systems. Gates Foundation's commitment to Nigeria now totals over $2.8 billion, the largest in Africa.
The national honor awarded to Bill Gates is a well-deserved recognition.
In the area of health technology, Bill Gates has done so much.
From his attitude, it looks more like he has adopted Nigeria as his second home.
Yet, the announcement has not been without controversy. Critics argue that it reflects a broader trend of overlooking local heroes, individuals working tirelessly at the grassroots level, often with little support or recognition.
Giving him national honor to do what? To become a full-fledged citizen.
I mean, his work is great, but it doesn't inspire anything.
Because it is one thing to give an award and it's one thing to be deserving of this award.
Presenting the award in Abuja, President Tinubu highlighted Gates' significant contributions to health, education, and poverty reduction in Nigeria and across the African continent.
It is highly remarkable. It's an inspiration to leadership across the world, including the one standing before you.
In his acceptance speech, Bill Gates expressed his gratitude and reaffirmed his commitment to continuing support for Nigeria.
The goal of the foundation has been to help Nigeria improve its health. Nigeria's always had ambitious goals for improving health.
This award is traditionally conferred on current or former speakers of the House of Representatives, senior cabinet members, police chiefs, prominent traditional rulers, and distinguished military generals. It is also extended to individuals recognized for their exceptional contributions to politics, philanthropy, and community development. For WADR, Yechinus Asitu in Abuja.
Ghana's parliament has passed a new energy sector levy that introduces 1 cedi charge per litre on all petroleum products. The controversial bill was approved on June 3, 2025, on the certificate of urgency following a walkout by the minority in practice. The efforts to stabilize the troubled energy sector have triggered fresh criticism from the opposition and industry players alike. But President Mahama says the decision, though difficult, is necessary. WDR's Nadi Ditete reports.
Explaining the rationale behind the levy on the floor of Parliament, Finance Minister Dr. Kasiela Toforson reveals that Ghana's total energy sector debt currently stands at $3.1 billion. However, he warned that a much higher amount, $3.7 billion, is needed to avert a total collapse of the sector. Reason for the levy:
to help raise additional revenue to fund the needs in the power sector. The government is proposing an increase in export price of petrol, diesel and related products. The impact will be absorbed by the gains made from the strong performance of the Ghana cedis. The Speaker, and this will mean that consumers will not have to pay extra for the price of petrol and diesel beginning today.
But the minority is accusing the government of betrayal. Here is Minority Leader Alexander Kwame Napenyo marking.
You repeal e-levy, reintroduce e-levy. That's what you are doing. What are you? This is the e-levy. You have introduced e-levy. Then you say that you run it through certificate of urgency.
The backlash has extended beyond Parliament. Players in the downstream petroleum sector have condemned the levy. Dr. Reverson Opong is CEO of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies.
If you multiply that 1 cedi by the volumes of liters sold, it's huge. This will bring a huge impact not only on consumers but onto the sector. I don't know what stakeholder engagement was done before the finance minister threw this at the Parliament. It is not acceptable and it's not sustainable to the sector.
Meanwhile, former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has also criticized the government's decision. But President John Dramani Mahama insists that while the levy may be tough, it is necessary to stabilize the energy sector and prevent further deterioration. For WDR, Nadi Ditete, Accra.
Meanwhile, a section of Ghanaians on the streets of Accra have been reacting to the latest levy passed by Parliament.
What it comes to is that for every gallon of petrol, we are paying about 4 cedis 50 pesos, which I think is a bit on the high side. So if it can be made 50 pesos per litre, that will come to about 2 cedis 50 pesos per gallon of petrol. They have good reason. But they should balance it. You see, they should consider the impact it will have on the people.
The time we are reducing the fare, I think the fuel has been reduced to only 4%, but they force us to reduce our fare to 15%. And now you are going to add another 1 cedi to it. It's not good for the drivers.
Well, I'm happy with the implementation of the policies that the government is bringing out. And we must be grateful to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, Dr. Atoforsen, and the Governor of Bank of Ghana for putting this initiative out. Ghanaians should embrace it, because at the end of the day, the same Ghanaians are complaining that there's no so which the government needs to resolve. So if they are bringing this, it is better for us to accept it in good faith and make sure we pay, so that at the end of the day, they will not be doing so in this country.
A section of Ghanaians reacting to the latest energy sector levy passed by Parliament. United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF has expressed concern over the recent scabies outbreak affecting children at a Koranic boarding school in the Gambia and urges immediate and coordinated action to protect children throughout the country. This comes after the Ministry of Health recently reported that at least 57 children had been diagnosed with scabies, a highly contagious skin condition caused by microscopic mite. The outbreak is directly linked to the unhygienic and overcrowded living conditions. Abdullah Hassan has more in this report.
UNICEF is sounding the alarm over a scabies outbreak at Dara Medina Suwane, where at least 57 children have been affected, according to the Ministry of Health as of May 27th. The outbreak has been linked to overcrowded and unsanitary living conditions, limited access to clean water, and poor hygiene, creating a dangerous environment for disease to spread. UNICEF is urging immediate and coordinated action to protect vulnerable children across the country. They are calling on the government and all stakeholders to carry out thorough inspections of all childcare institutions, including Quranic schools, and to ensure these facilities meet national care and safeguarding standards. The organization is also pushing for more investment in family and community-based care to reduce reliance on institutions and prevent a family separation. In addition, UNICEF stresses the need for adequate access to food, clean water, healthcare, and education for children in care, along with confidential, child-friendly complaint systems. Citing past tragedies like the 2021 Bilal boarding school fire, UNICEF is calling for urgent reforms. They reaffirmed their commitment to supporting the Gambia in protecting every child's right to safety and dignity.
Abdullah Hassan with that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Opposition political parties in Senegal reject recommendations from the just-ended National Dialogue on Political System. Côte d'Ivoire's PDCI threatens nationwide protests over its leader's removal from the electoral roll ahead of October's presidential election. The Ghana government introduces a new levy to revive the energy sector, and UNICEF raises alarm over scabies outbreak in the Gambia boarding school and calls for urgent action. Still ahead in the news, we also have press review, guest interview, and sports. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Liberia's human rights lawyer and advocate calls for tolerance and democratic discourse in Liberia. Trawan Gonle, a prominent lawyer and advocate, emphasized the importance of tolerance and open dialogue among government officials and citizens. His remarks came in response to the backlash faced by Bomi County Senator Edwin Snow, who expressed critical views regarding the government, sparking a wave of reactions from various state officials. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The former Solicitor General wants government officials to embrace opposing views as opportunities for growth. The Cross of Gonglo's message centered on the necessity of opposing viewpoints in a functioning democracy, stating that intolerance shows a lack of maturity. In his opinion, leaders must view disagreement in policy as a vital component of governance that encourages accountability and progress.
Opposing views are important in a democracy because it helps you to see the other side and to succeed. You should rather come and prove people wrong not by what they say, but what they do in the interest of the Liberian people.
He also added that defying political opinions should not slow down relationships but rather enrich discussions. Trawan Gonglo recounted Liberia's transformative impact, asserting that it has strengthened the country's democracy and allowed for greater freedom of expression.
Expression of political views of people which is about government should not be a source of anger. It should stimulate people in government to prove those who wish them wrong right by their actions so that they can be told by other people you are wrong about the government.
Gonglo, a prominent Liberian lawyer and rights advocate, reiterated his dedication to providing legal services for anyone whose rights are trampled upon while trying to exercise his or her democratic and political rights. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
As you know, our correspondent Nadidi Tete for the press review in Ghana.
Greetings, welcome to the newspaper review segment. We begin with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. Government won't interfere with corruption cases, as according to President Mahama. Also, 1 Ghana cedi energy sector levy to tackle 3.7 billion debt. That's according to the finance minister. Inflation drops to 2-year low. To the Ghanaian Times newspaper front page, government launches sustainable city strategy to reshape urban landscape and prepare for future demands. Other stories on the front page on the Ghanaian Times. Inflation drops to 18.4% in May 2025, lowest since February 2022. That's according to the Ghana Sesco Service. The Chronicle newspaper front page, MPP MPs protest at police headquarters, demand security for EC to declare Ablikuma North parliamentary results. Also on the front page, Mahama's magic inflation tumbles to 18% to 18.4%, lowest since February 2022. And NACOC transfers seized cannabis from the Volta region to Accra. The New Trust newspaper front page, 1 Ghana cedi Dumsor levy is inconsistent with Mahama's 2025 budget statement and economic policy. That's according to Dr. Razak Kojo Poku. Other stories here, OSP drops all corruption and bribery charges against Thomas Owusu Andy after a plea bargain. The New Republic newspaper, NDC must reset or face revolution. Guzi Tano drops bombshell at 46th June 4th revolutionary anniversary. And that will be it for the newspaper review segment. Is back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Nadidi Tete, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In this news segment, let's go back to Ghana, where the parliament has passed a new energy sector levy that introduces a 1 cedi charge per litre on all petroleum products. The controversial bill was approved on June 3, 2025 under a certificate of urgency following a walkout by a minority in protest. The efforts to stabilize the troubled energy sector have triggered fresh criticism from the opposition and industry players alike. But President Mahama says the decision, though difficult, is necessary. Well, our guest this afternoon is Ghanaian economist Evans Nuno, who spoke on the enactment of the new energy levy.
The government took away or cancelled some 3 levies from our system, our financial system. That is the E levy, and then the betting tax, and then emission tax. So these taxes were taken off. But surprisingly, government has introduced us attracted the wrath of most of the people. So people are not too happy with it. People think that it is too harsh, and they didn't expect that.
Even though that some people actually support, the government to revive the economy, isn't this counterproductive, knowing what he has done moments ago and now?
Yes, it could, because yes. So though the government has worked so hard to stabilize the city and then to reduce inflation, as we speak now, inflation has further gone down to approximately 80%, and that is good. But the current introduction of the energy levy of 1 cedi on every litre of petrol and diesel could further trigger inflation if not well taken, because it can add on to the general price level, because most people, especially traders, would have to incorporate their lorry fares into the final prices of the product they sell out. And once it's petroleum prices triggering inflation is quite infectious. So if I sell and I increase the price because of lorry fares, then in his sense, cost of living has risen. And so it adds to the cost of living. It has that inflation tendency, and it can change the story. So I think that, yes, though the government is working so hard to reduce inflation and to stabilize the cities, if care is not taken, the introduction of this levy could reverse the situation. That is, if not properly handled, because 1 Ghana cedi on every litre of petrol or diesel bought is, in my view, very high.
Does it mean he cannot revive the economy without this levy that was just introduced by Parliament?
I, as an economist, had a problem with the way and manner we went about cancelling some of these levies, because Ye levy, for example, was giving us not less than 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. Remember, we are implementing free SHS school feeding program. And all these programs, all these flagship programs would need money to finance or we did a solid source of funding. Now, we took away these taxes. And obviously, the government has similar flagship programs to finance and would also have to maintain the existing ones because the government never doesn't have any desire of cancelling the free SHS and the school feeding programs. If that is so, then the government will need money to finance these programs. So, taking away those taxes, I knew that the government obviously had to make alternative arrangements to get alternative sources because at the same time, we are looking at achieving fiscal consolidation. And the government has also said that it wasn't going to indulge in excessive monetary financing. In fact, they were even advocating for zero monetary financing, which meant that the government wouldn't rely on the Bank of Ghana, as it were, to finance most of the flagship programs, but the government would have to raise revenue within and use that. Remember, we had also been locked out of the international credit market. So the best way out is to mobilize funds internally, either through treasury bill or through taxes or any other means. So in as much as we are not going to the international market, in as much as we want to avoid excessive monetary financing by running high budget deficit, then one would ask, where would the money to finance the government flagship programs and to, do the normal things government do, new policies? How would the government finance those things? Taking away some of these taxes that are yielding high revenues. So I knew that obviously something would happen.
Do you see this as a short or long-term measure?
There's nothing that seems to suggest that it will be a short-term measure.
Evans Nuno is a Ghanaian economist. Well, in sports, the 2025 Basketball African League ball playoffs and finals are set to begin this week, marking an exciting new chapter for the tournament as it takes place for the first time at the Sunbed Arena in Pretoria, South Africa. The highly anticipated event will run from Friday, June 6 to Saturday, June 14. The final phase will feature the top 8 teams that advanced from the conference group stages held earlier this year in Rabat, Morocco, Dakar, Senegal, and Kigali, Rwanda. The teams competing for the title are Al Ahly of Tripoli, Libya, Al Ittihad of Egypt, US Monastir of Tunisia, the 2022 ball champions, River Hoopers of Nigeria, Pedro Ledwanda of Angola, the reigning 2024 ball champions, APR of Rwanda, Creole Stars of Cape Verde, force the Rabat of Morocco. The tournament format includes 4 seeding games to determine matchups, followed by a single elimination playoffs featuring 8 games. The competition will culminates in the 2025 ball finals on June 14, where the continent's best basketball clubs team will be crowned champions. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting in Dakar at Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Faluluso and Sehnjai for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X and formerly Twitter and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's flagship environment program, Enviroscope, with Abdullahi Hassan. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.